As you can see, there were some great matches there last week. And Flea, I'm so sure you've got some personal favourites there. We saw Wenger and RAISY managed to get their first win of the day. Maxter, I was very surprised in terms of how he was going to play and even pan out against Effortless, because he lost against Effortless last time at the Quake World Championships. And we thought, okay, it might be like Zeneku in some ways, where you have to ease into the Pro League a little bit, trying to find his ground. But he absolutely smashed it.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's great to see that new talent just make an appearance on the main stage of the Quake Pro League and do so well. And I think a lot of people are expecting great things from Maxter. Another really interesting game, in my opinion, was Cnc Versus Avik. Avik didn't have the greatest performance at the Quake World Championship, whereas Cnc had basically a breakout performance, making it to the top 6, the finals day, but still it was Avik, the Polish prince, who reigned supreme and came out on top in that match. So a great matchup. Good, surprising result.
And the Polish puncher once again managed to be able to solidify that win once again. But we have to talk a little bit about the season overall and just the changes which have been made compared to last season and this season. So, of course, with this season, we do have 3 stages, but it's been extended from 10 weeks to 13 weeks. So there will be 13 weeks on each of the 3 stages. And the point system, that's gone. That's now revolved more around the pricing. The pricing being, with a map win, you get $150. If you lose a map, you get $50 anyway. So at least that way your quid's in, it's no problem. So at least you walk away with something nonetheless. And we do have a $500,000 prize pool broken down throughout the entire course of the year. And one thing to talk about as well, Flea, is with the cross region. As you know, before each of the stage finals, last stage and the stage before, was the fact that once you hit the top 6, the top 3 from the winner's side and the loser's side from each region, you play against each other in the top 6, and then that's where it'll be cross region based, playing on the US and EU servers or depending on where you're from. But instead, that's not going to happen from the top 6 anymore. That's going to happen from the very first round, and it was successful before. So now we have to see exactly what happens and how things pan out even further when they start it from the beginning.
Absolutely. Another important change to note is one that concerns the map pool. For the entirety of the first season of the Quake Pro League, our players played on the tried and tested maps that you all know, but this time around things are due for a change, as the available maps will be rotating in and out of play. So starting next week, this week, things are still the same, but next week we will be removing Veil of Nav and Blood Run from the pool and replace them with 2 of the newest maps. Deep Embrace and Tower of Koth will be taking their place, so that should definitely change things up a little bit and make for some very interesting games.
It will definitely freshen things up in terms of the map pool. And one thing I want to quickly add before we go into the standings is the fact that with challenges as well, that starts on the 26th of September, and we will have more information for you. But if you head over to Quake.com, the schedules and more information will be there as time progresses. But let's have a look at the standing. Let's start off with the European side of things and see exactly how it's panned out from there. And as you can see, RAISY, Wenger and Avik at the top of the list so far, and it's a bit hard to say because, Kilson, I'm sure he wanted to have a good start into the season, but against Wenger, it's nobody's business. We know how good Wenger can be. It could have gone either way for both of those players, but kind of what we predicted, I feel, Flea.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there were that big of surprises during our last games. I think that a lot of Tox fans, though, were slightly disappointed. Toxic, the Swedish Terminator, not taking home a single map in his matchup against RAISY. Of course, RAISY, one of the strongest players in the entire world, but Tox, he's just one of those players that when he's on point, he performs so well. He's got a lot of fans, his personality, his playstyle, you gotta love it. And so I think a lot of people are very hungry to finally see him perform to the maximum of his potential once again, but last week just wasn't it for him.
Yeah, Tox definitely has the ability, more than enough ability, shall we say. He's got great fundamentals and mechanics, probably one of the best tracking aims in the game. Just struggling to adapt in certain areas, but we'll see as the future matches come. But let's have a look at the NA standings, the Americas standings, shall I say, and see exactly how things have progressed there. And let's be real, not too much of a surprise. Raf and Dahang are already on the top of the leaderboard joint there. Maxter, definitely a big surprising one, but Chain only taking it 2-1 and not 3-0. I wouldn't even say that's a surprise either, because I see Dewey as one of those nemesis opponents where you know what he's like as a player, very passive, very defensive. He likes to fight more on his terms depending on the situation and which parts of the map. And he's a very tough opponent to adapt to at times.
Oh, absolutely. Dewey definitely changed the scene up a fair bit and in NA back when he entered the Quake Pro League because his playstyle was just so different from what most pros were showing at the time, right? Dewey, absolutely no issues whatsoever getting a one frag lead and just hitting the brake and saying this and no further. I am comfortable winning this by just one frag, even if I have to play my own game for another 5 minutes. And he's one of the few players in the league who's absolutely capable of delivering just that.
There's no doubt about that, and not really too many surprises. But that's all in the past. That's all behind us. But let's have a look at the schedule for today for you guys at home to see what matches will be coming up. And the first one will be Spart1e versus RAISY. That'll be coming up very shortly. Effortless versus Chain, Psycho versus Dewey. There's still quite a few good series here. Tox versus Avik could be a great one, depending on the circumstances of how they're both feeling on the day. And look at last two, though. Cnc versus Cooler and Cypher versus Base. There'll be some top-notch matches coming up.
Oh, absolutely. I think especially the last two, they are our highlighted games of the day. Cnc versus Cooler. Cooler, of course, the king, extremely well-known player, one of the most veteran competitors in the entire scene, whereas Cnc, as we mentioned earlier, had his breakthrough performance at the Quake World Championship, finishing top 3 EU, qualifying even through the upper bracket without dropping any series during that first day of play. On the other hand, Cooler, though, extremely experienced, so this should be an excellent matchup. And then rounding things off, we've got Cypher versus Base. Cypher from Navi, an incredibly talented player, has been around the block, but so has Base, a defensive powerhouse, so we're getting a bit of a clash of styles to finish things up.
Yeah, CNZ definitely made a mockery against some of his opponents in the Quake World Championships. He was 2-0 down in relegation, came back 3-2, and then took it all the way top 6 on the winner's side. That's unbelievable. But let's have a look at the first match of the day with Spart1e versus RAISY. And let's take a look at the vetoes as well, because we have to understand that with Spart1e, we know mechanically he is gifted in certain areas. It's just it's adaptation and how he tries to download his opponent. It can be not as quick as everyone else's, but we know in terms of his aim and how he actually moves around the map, it's very solid and very fluid. But against an opponent like RAISY, where he expects all surprises nonetheless, he kind of expects the unexpected a lot more or too much too often. But you can see here, going through the vetoes, the maps, and the champions anyway. The clutch banned straight away. Let's be honest, Flea, that's not really too much of a surprise there. With Veil being picked first, Blood Run second, and Molten Falls to finish things off.
Yep, indeed, the ban on the clutch, that's any time you go up against RAISY, it's something that you want to go for, right? He has basically brought or improved upon what the Hang first brought to the scene, and he has mastered the robot, perfected his craft, and he is now basically unbeatable on that champion. So Spart1e, good decision taking that one out of the pool.
I'm not really too surprised, really. I think it's kind of everyone's go-to kind of bits and pieces, isn't it? The first thing you do is ban clutch and then think about the map choices afterwards, because he's quite agile with clutch. It's not only like Awoken, it's also some other maps like Blood Covenant and a few others which he's actually very good on. It's not just a particular map pick. RAISY's actually good with clutch, and banning him first, it's the go-to. It's like what Cian said with Molten Falls. That's kind of one of the first things you do ban. There's certain areas here and there which certain opponents, certain players to like ban first if it's a certain map or certain champion, and then you go from there. But do you feel like Spart1e has much of a chance at this time round? Because we know how good RAISY is. The only thing we could say about RAISY is that maybe he could have a mental block against a player like Rafa, or maybe this is just different in his play style. But we'll have to see as things will pan out during this series.
I think if Spart1e wants to have a shot at this, he has to come out and start strong. The last time they played each other was back in Stage 4, back in Season 1, and Spart1e actually managed to win the first map. He came out swinging, but RAISY turned the things around quickly, and now Spart1e, shoddy, pretty solid. One more will do it. This is exactly the kind of start that I was talking about. Can he get the final bullet off? There he goes. The little blast with the starting shotgun will net him a kill and a mega to boot. Good read on RAISY as well. This is what Spart1e needs to do. He came out strong, but now he just can't give up the control that he has established.
It's all about pressure at the end of the day. As long as Spart1e continues that like he has done now, then he should be in a great spot, because RAISY has made some ridiculous comebacks in the past, and this is exactly what he's doing. He's keeping his distance with the LG, trying to at least try and get something done, but RAISY's so weak at this moment in time, and it looks like he's going to get away and fight for another day. No, he won't, as Spart1e teleports through, takes him down, and Spart1e gets the mega to help himself even further.
I actually love that rocket jump by Spart1e right there, just out of that little acid pool, knowing that yes, it would leave him low and hurt, but it would also give him a better angle to pick up the Mega. Now he's in trouble though, he's stuck around far too long. The moment those first rockets went awry, he should have gotten out of that situation as soon as possible, and now RAISY just barreling down. Luckily for Spart1e though, landing some good rails is of course one of the weapons that he's quite well known for. And he still clutch it out. He needs a bit more damage. One rail should give him the frag. Threads the needle! And down goes Maestro. RAISY. Beautiful opener from Spart1e. Catches him off the spawn with LG as well. Things are looking good for the Swede, Lethal.
Looking very good indeed. We've seen Spart1e play quite well on Vale a few times. He's had a bit of hit and miss in terms of his map choices. But Vale, kind of one of the maps he does go to, and it's really shining through here as he's keeping RAISY on his toes constantly and hitting almost every single shot, keeping him at bay, making sure that RAISY has to go to certain areas of the map to try and get away from him. But now, as you see, RAISY is on the hunt. He's trying to keep away from him as much as he can. And you saw earlier as well, RAISY tried to go for the rockets. We know that with Vale on spawn, it's quite a common trait to go for the rockets first to at least get some kind of weapon in your arsenal. But that definitely wasn't the time, as now Spart1e has increased his lead 5-1.
Spart1e on fire. Extremely strong start. 4 frags in the lead on Veil of Nav against RAISY, who's playing the Sorlag, one of the strongest champions on this map. Quite the accomplishment. Mega will be up in just a few seconds. Heavy spawning at the same time. A decision will have to be made. Looks like Spart1e, for the time being, prioritizing damage. Doesn't just want to commit to one or the other. Ultimately couldn't get off any damage on RAISY, who lands 2 nasty rails. Spart1e, you don't want to go back around that corner. Tried to juke RAISY. It didn't pay off for him. Super Shotgun has to be strong right now. It isn't, and RAISY showing signs of life, starting a comeback.
That's right, Spart1e was going absolutely nowhere down that narrow corridor with the hourglasses. And still RAISY playing with his food at the moment, gets another frag. 5-4 now. RAISY slowly but surely catching up, and this is going to make matters worse for Spart1e. But as I was saying that, Spart1e manages to finish up and take him down and get the Mega to make things worse. LG's him on spawn, and surely he'll be able to clean him up. No, he won't. But maybe he can get a flank here and hopefully take him down. But it looks like Spart1e's decided to wait for the time being, heal up, get the light, get the health orbs if you can, and get ready for the next set of items as well, because the heavy's coming up in the next few seconds, Mega as well. And it seems like he's continuing to keep RAISY on his toes, but that's literally the worst possible instance. And Spart1e realizes that as well. And that was such a shame, because Spart1e had everything on the table to actually make a go of this and be massively stacked, ready for the next engagement.
He bounced RAISY through the teleporter with his own rockets right behind him. Lethal, this is a crucial moment in the match for Spart1e. This is what we saw last time he played RAISY. He starts strong, gets himself a lead, but then it all just falls apart. And that lead just dwindles until it's a tied game. He has to make his stand now, because once RAISY starts building that momentum, once RAISY, the Maestro player, gets into the lead, things are going to be extremely dire for Spart1e. This is a crucial time.
You're not wrong there. It was such a huge shame, you know, with Spart1e had a decent stack. He was going to get even more stacked with the items coming up shortly with the height advantage as well. And for that to happen to him, he must be kicking himself to a certain extent. But it's definitely not too late. Still 5 minutes left on the clock. RAISY has a slight stack advantage, as you can see. Still tied things up, so Spart1e just needs to be a bit patient, take his time, and look for that right engagement. He can hear exactly when the meg's been picked up. He has a rough idea of when the items picked up. But anyway, but it depends what kind of engagement he takes. RAISY's going to be knowing that at some stage Spart1e's going to be looking to try and control top mid at one point or another. But RAISY's looking for that chip damage. Hasn't got the rail as of yet. Gets 52 on that first rocket, but Spart1e has to back away. He's in nowhere near the position to fight right now.
Those missed rails from Spart1e, they might come and bite him. Luckily for him, oh, I spoke too soon. RAISY catapults himself through the teleporter with a beautiful rocket jump and a rail off the spawn as well. Spart1e now, he has to get out of this area. Has to start restacking. He still has half a map left to be played. Doesn't have to rush anything, cannot throw himself at his opponent dangerously now. He shouldn't even be here. Unless he feels he can do the damage, which he can't. Doesn't have any armor to work with. If RAISY finds him now, one more bullet will seal the deal. The shotty comes around the corner. Decent defensive rockets from Spart1e, though, buying himself a little bit of time, but RAISY managed to get that frag at just the right moment, immediately turning it into a mega and a small armor as well. Spart1e outstacked, outclassed right now.
RAISY at the time decided to leave the mega, which is completely understandable, and focus more on his opponent and put him off guard. And it's just making matters worse for Spart1e here. 9-6 in favour of RAISY. And he's pretty much all over him. Got him on spawn, has the flank, he decides to back away for now. But even then, he's still got the mega, he can go for it again. You can see Spart1e trying to rocket jump up for it. Doesn't happen, doesn't make a bit of difference there. 10-6, and this is where I feel things could get a little bit out of hand.
That's... You hate to see it, that just hurts when you're Spart1e. That rocket jump, he would have made it on top, but the rail just knocked him straight back down, killed his momentum, but hang on. Spart1e, 4 points of health left to party with, and he makes it happen indeed. But now he's gotta be so careful. RAISY, of course, knows how low he is, smells the blood in the water. He's gonna go for the chase, gets the perfect spawn as well. And that just shows the high level of play we're witnessing right now, Lethal. Just RAISY getting in that right corner to force a good, favorable spawn, and then just rocket jumping straight on out, catching Spart1e by surprise. RAISY gets the spit frag, doesn't even need the shotty. 2 minutes left for 6 frags. Probably gonna be... Oh! I'm surprised Spart1e didn't bounce right back up. Looks like it won't matter in the end at all, but now RAISY has lapped him, doubled the score. Doesn't look like Spart1e has any answers to that.
Yeah, that rocket jump earlier, as you can see, like, he was actually meant to be going for the mega in case... I think he made the assumption that Spart1e was going to go for it too, but he didn't expect him to take so long to go up the LG ramp and actually make something of a go of it. But you see, even with RAISY's awareness, managed to take him down anyway, and it's just pretty much playground work here for RAISY. It was good, you know, Spart1e was tying things up nicely, and I still feel like that one moment with that telefrag must have... It could have changed so much of the game. He could maybe increase his lead by 2 or 3 frags. Maybe if he actually managed to get both items as well as the map control. It could have been a completely different story. But that one minor play could have cost him here. And as you can see now, RAISY 18-7. And it's pretty much said and done here.
Yes, indeed. RAISY just getting the frag through the teleporter. At just the right time too, rather allowed him to pick up the mega to work with. Spart1e does get another frag on the board though, but it's probably too little, too late. A minute for 10 frags, I don't even think it's mathematically possible anymore. This time there just isn't any time left. As RAISY looking to expand his lead even further. And this is very reminiscent of the previous match between the two. Spart1e, strong start, really looking on point, landing the shots, getting control of the items, racking together quite a few frags, but then it all just comes crumbling down at one point, and RAISY just runs away with it. I don't remember the exact scoreline, but outside of that one first map that Spart1e won, RAISY had double-digit frags of a lead over his opponent, just like he does now.
Yeah, it was such a shame, you know. We know what Spart1e's like, and I felt like he really could have done it. He did what we asked, you know, he needs to keep the pressure on, keep the map control. He had the items up and ready and waiting for him to pick up. But that one telefrag, you know, could have been a completely different game. It depends on the scenario, really. And it's just such a shame that that kind of circumstance even happened. You know, Spart1e did what we asked, but when a little moment like that, I'm not going to even say he was tilted. You could see with his mindset and his mentality, he was perfectly fine. He was still playing it quite slow and steady, making sure not to choose the wrong engagement. But even then, it was just way too much. And when they're both on the default stack, and as you said before, you know how strong Sorlag is on a map like Vale. It doesn't really too much he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. RAISY mounted the comeback perfectly, played his own game, and you could tell, right? RAISY had 1500 damage over his opponent, even though Spart1e got off to such an excellent start. So that just shows that the man from Maestro, technically gifted to be sure, had perfect control for a good portion of the game, and at that point I think Spart1e just started feeling the pressure, made too many aggressive moves. Like I mentioned it, while this very situation was happening, Spart1e shouldn't have been there. The moment he misses those first shots, he needs to get out. He can't keep sticking around while RAISY's piling on the damage and he's just hoping to land something in return. Can't play the game like that against an opponent such as RAISY. And that will conclude the first map. Now the second map that we've got coming up in just a moment now is actually going to be Blood Run, Lethal. Spart1e will be playing the Ranger up against RAISY on the Doomslayer. So RAISY favoring the double jumps, got a lot of mobility, can work out beautifully around that center area of the map, the heavy, the tribal, the shotgun, that part, you all know it. Whereas on the other hand, Spart1e, he's got the Ranger Orb, can get him all the way from the bottom of the map from mega to heavy instantly, plus it has a lot of burst damage potential as well. So we've got that raw, constant mobility, the extra movement up against just the bursts of speed and damage on Spart1e's end.
There's a lot of areas on the map you can get away with in terms of the Ranger, but like you said, in terms of getting from the Mega to the Heavy as well, if he keeps the timings of the items right within the next few seconds, then he should be perfectly fine. He can keep that map control for the rest of the game and keep RAISY on his toes. That's the kind of out clause you could say that Spart1e will have going into this, but I don't think he's going to be too annoyed about that. You know, those instances can happen. It's very, very rare when you see someone with a stack advantage get telefragged and bounce through, but it's just one of those things. I'm sure Spart1e is just going to knock it on the head and be like, okay, that's map number one, that's fine, we'll deal with that for another time when we can look back and see exactly how to improve on those areas. But like I said, you know, with the Doomslayer with RAISY, okay, he's got the double jump like you mentioned before, he has a little bit more ability in terms of trying to close out his opponent, but then you've got the audio cues of being in that nail room, so I'm sure Spart1e is going to be well aware of when exactly RAISY is going to push up on him. But what style is either player going to play at the moment? We know RAISY is very aggressive no matter what map it is, but Spart1e might even play it a little bit different here, we'll have to see.
Yeah, could very well be the case, although I still expect Spart1e to start strong, right? That's what he did, and for the 4 previous maps he played against RAISY, he was the one to get the first frag, he was the one to prioritize the opener of the map and just get off to a really strong start, and I think that that is basically the only shot he has at winning at least 1, maybe 2 maps in this series. He has to just start throwing punches from the very first second, because when RAISY gets into control, I just don't really see Spart1e breaking back into that.
Well, you're talking about good starts for Spart1e. Blood Run is probably one of the best maps to have a good start on, so then you can control how the map goes in terms of the tempo, but we'll have to see how things will pan out as we're going to start with RAISY to see exactly what he'll do from the get-go. And as you can see, RAISY managed to get away from the time being. Spart1e, as you can see, is going to try and get away for now, but RAISY is just going to hold his ground and see exactly where Spart1e could be, so he can push up and make his next move.
And Spart1e doing exactly what I mentioned before the map started, using that orb to get from mega to heavy. You can get both major items reliably by making plays like that, and that's how he started out. So RAISY, of course, will react to that by being a lot more passive, not putting himself out there, as Spart1e, decent chunk of damage done right there. He's delaying the heavy, actually, Spart1e. Just around the corner, catches RAISY by surprise. Really good play from the Swede, but he needs more damage. Gets a really solid split between the 2 major items. 10 seconds or so. Whereas RAISY now has to make do with scraps he finds around the map. Spart1e's reads have been solid, lethal, just catching his opponent time and time again, but RAISY has got that constant passive ability, the double jump, that's allowing him to escape a lot of harm right now.
As you can see now, RAISY is trying to, well, he was trying to get away with his life, but luckily for him, Spart1e didn't come through. Decides to come through in the end, but it's delayed it massively just to throw his opponent off a little bit. And the only thing Spart1e needs to do now is to keep the timing of the items as close as possible. We were talking about it during the pre-game. It's the fact that he gets that mega first and then he can go for the heavy straight afterwards within the next 3 seconds. That will do him justice and do him perfectly to continue that map control thoroughly in comparison to what he has now. But he's done it a little bit. As you can see, the mega is up, so I'm hoping he does delay it a little bit more, which he has done. And the more he delays it, the more RAISY is going to be in trouble here. But as you can see, RAISY just listen out for those audio cues and trying to look for that first shot.
RAISY has a pretty good idea of when the items spawn, especially now he heard that pickup right next to him through the wall. But he's still playing things passively because he knows that 1, Spart1e has the better stack, and 2, he's got that orb. So if Spart1e just comes blazing around the corner, lands one good rail, and then follows it up with an orb, RAISY has next to nowhere to run. So he has to play this evasive game from the start. Really solid orb right there. But RAISY somehow reading it, ready for that hyper-aggressive push. Spart1e doesn't know that he's there. This is such a good play from RAISY. The LG damage adding up. Beautiful. He misses the rail though. And just like that, lethal. The tables have turned. RAISY firmly in the driver's seat, and Spart1e relegated to that top area of the map, looking for small armors and health bubbles to keep himself at least somewhat stacked.
I liked the idea from Spart1e. Don't really see it too often, normally on rare occurrences. But RAISY was, funnily enough, quite prepared for it, and he managed to get that 100 damage straight away with one of those rockets. Kept him at bay. Now it's RAISY's turn with the map control to see if he can pin down Spart1e in any way. The only difference is with RAISY, with the Doomslayer, he has the agility to get back and forth from the heavy side to the shotgun anyway, so at least if he wants to try and pin him down in that nail room, he can. The only problem is the audio cues will be there for Spart1e, so he can move and at least try and, in an agile way, move away from as quick as possible, which he has done now, but he's on the chase straight away. RAISY's trying to catch up to him, gets to the first rail, and Spart1e's in deep trouble here. Second one, is he going to go for the third? No, he won't, but gets the shotgun now anyway, and clean things up. Get the first frag on the board.
Spart1e falling just short of that orb right there. Don't think it would have mattered much in the end anyways, but that will be Maestro. RAISY getting the first frag on the board, is in full control right now as well. Good read. Switching away from the railgun, the LG, murderous. We've seen so much of that this game or this series already. RAISY doing damage and then just finishing it off with the shotgun was his main weapon basically. In the previous map now, but that rail, that could end up costing him, missing that shot. That is bad, that is nasty. Spart1e now. Better positioning, better stack. But can he afford to jump over to the heavy? No! He drops! Making his way onto the tribal platform, but RAISY with the flick ready for it.
And there we go with that double jump to the heavy. It is way too much. RAISY's LG is just flawless right now, and it's just not missing a beat here, no matter where he goes on the map. And what a change of events we've seen here. RAISY already at 4-0 over the last minute. He's just literally not missing as he flees. Literally no stopping him. And then the tri-bolt to boot to finish things off. Great way. 5-0 now. 5 minutes left remaining for Spart1e to make some kind of comeback here.
This map has been won by RAISY, or is being won by RAISY for one main reason, Lethal. The railgun. Spart1e has a 0% railgun accuracy, whereas RAISY is at 47 or 60 rather, 60% railgun for RAISY versus 0 on Spart1e. He has yet to land a single railgun shot, and that is what allows RAISY to mount his hyper-aggressive pushes and get away whenever Spart1e feels like he's in a position to push out again. Here, once again, one rail, twice, down goes Spart1e, and RAISY just extending his lead ever further.
Spart1e was just there hoping to get his rail. Then in the end he has now, but it's a little bit too late here as RAISY's cleaning up once more. 9-0 already, and it's only been 2 minutes since the first frag, and he's still not missing the rails. Gets the first one, but doesn't decide to go for the second as he cleans up with the shotgun nicely. It's again too out of hand in comparison to what we've seen previously. Got full control of the items. Heavy's coming up in the next 5 seconds, but even if he takes a little bit of damage, he can just take the light and then go through and take the heavy straight afterwards. And oh, that was quite close there, but not close enough. RAISY is still healthy, even more healthier now as he gets that next heavy.
Spart1e now is kind of fallen. Oh, he should be able to get himself a frag here, though. It will be a trade. Looks like the better spawn might end up going to Spart1e, getting shoddy, railgun, and position on the Mega as well. But what I was saying is that Spart1e's kind of fallen victim to the same trap that we often see Talks suffer from. You die and you feel like you've done enough damage to warrant another push and maybe get the refrag. Then you just take damage from the rail once, twice, and again, Spart1e now in a bad situation. This should be RAISY's frag. He can't keep doing this. He's given RAISY close to 10 frags that way already. Gets a decent fight, loses, but then RAISY restacks, retaliates with the rail, and he just hopes he can mount an instant refrag without playing for the position or the weapons first, and it's just not working out for him at all.
Oh, Spart1e had the bigger stack then, almost lost that fight, but managed to take the W anyway. But as I say, that RAISY gets one of his own as he rails him straight away on spawn as he was jumping through. And Spart1e, yeah, you said it before about his rails. You know, he's only hit 1 of 6 rails with 16% accuracy. And that kind of says one thing, really. You know, he's not doing enough chip damage and he's not really picking up the rails enough to add more weapons to his arsenal to kind of contribute certain ranges on how he wants to try and take down RAISY. But nonetheless, RAISY manages to take him down once again, 15-3. This is not the kind of scoreline I expected on a map like
nope.
Blood Run, but you saw there Spart1e is just trying to do something, anything, just to try and get, even if it's not an item, at least try and get some of the weapons. But RAISY's not even giving him a chance to do that. He gets to heavy, but will he be able to stay alive? It's so close between the two, as RAISY was only on 4 HP, back on 54 now. But it's pretty much almost said and done here already. Beautiful rocket once more, 17-3 with 2 minutes left.
I really feel like so much of this came down to weapon use. RAISY using the railgun masterfully. RAISY has done more damage with rail than any other weapon in his arsenal, whereas Spart1e has, in 8 minutes and a half of playtime, landed 1 single rail. He's done 90 damage with that weapon. RAISY is just playing the positional game, spacing out his opponent so much, and doing a lot of damage with the rail before Spart1e can even come close. And is working out so nicely because Spart1e he can't get footing in the game whatsoever. And now we're really seeing the avalanche, the snowball out of control. RAISY for the 2nd map in a row, getting more than 20 frags. Oh, lethal, this is a slaughter.
This is ridiculous. If there's another word for slaughter, which I'm sure there's plenty of them are, that would be it. Because at this moment in time, RAISY's just been ridiculous. I said about his tracking aim earlier, how it's been perfectly on point. 49% accuracy with the LG, and that's after hitting firing at nearly 600 shots. And that's ridiculous. He's just barely missing at all. Spart1e takes him down, but the damage has already been done. Again, RAISY, second map in a row, he's surpassed that 20 frag threshold.
Yeah, classic RAISY, trying to get at least 1 gauntlet frag on the board. We've seen him do it time and time again. Won't pay off this time, but he doesn't need it either. With just 20 seconds left to go, he will settle for some punches. The Berserk Rage taking down Spart1e. No party for him this time around, as it will be RAISY securing himself a 2nd map win in a row, meaning that we're about to jump into map 3, the final one of this series. Well played, RAISY, already.
World-class stuff from RAISY once again. I think just before we saw that as well, RAISY once again out-damaged his opponent by at least 1600 damage, which is remarkable, especially on a map like Blood Run. But I kind of felt like Spart1e was just charging in a little bit too much, and when you saw him contesting some of the items, some of the weapons, he wasn't really in a position to do it, was he? I think it kind of got a bit out of hand from there, and RAISY just took it on the chin and thought, well, do you know what, if you're going to come at me without the weapons in your arsenal or even the items to back you up, then do you know what, I will take this fight every single day. But this was the first frag that changed everything. It was going so well for Spart1e until he lost the item control, lost top mid as well, and RAISY just went completely off. And this is the one moment I remember with his LG. His tracking aim was absolutely ridiculous, to say the least. There were some nice plays here and there from Spart1e trying to catch his opponent off guard. But once RAISY got those first few frags in the 4 to 6 minute mark, there was just no going back. Spart1e tried to do everything he could, even contesting some of the items and weapons when he didn't really need to. And RAISY just completely walked away with it. Again, another map, another 20+ frag threshold.
I feel like, just as with the previous map, Veil, where you had that disastrous telefrag, it was that opening rocket when Spart1e orbed up to the grate that changed so much. I like the play, but RAISY had to read on him. And so he just landed instantly a perfect, direct 100 damage rocket. The moment Spart1e shows his face, Spart1e at that time is still confused, has no clue where RAISY is. RAISY dances away out of the room, still doing some more damage. And just like that, control changes completely. And RAISY starts getting himself set up, building that momentum. And that is where it all fell apart for Spart1e after a very clever and methodical first few minutes. So again, a shame. We keep saying this time and time again, right? Spart1e, he's got the skills, but it always just seems to fail at one of the crucial moments in the series. Good start, and then it crumbles.
I'd probably say with the way Spart1e plays at the start is perfectly fine. You know, it's calculated. He's trying to position himself in a way where he can at least take down RAISY on certain areas and spots. And I said it before as well with the fact that with RAISY, he expects more of the surprises rather than the common players you'd normally see, maybe at a slightly lower tier. He expects more of the unexpected, to say the least. And, you know, one of those moments where he orbed up from Mega to almost near the shotgun area to the top rockets, I wouldn't say RAISY expected it, but you saw his cursor placement. You saw he was ready for any little moment here and there where there's a possibility of Spart1e maybe playing slightly more unorthodox in comparison. And he did, and RAISY was expecting it. And this is the problem you see. RAISY has very, very good awareness. And once you get those first couple of frags, he will just run away with it. So Spart1e needs to be a little bit more cautious, but also when he does contest anything, maybe think twice about doing it before, you know, make sure you've got all the weapons in your arsenal and the items, or maybe something going for yourself before you actually be able to push up and challenge your opponent, who will probably be on a better stack.
Yep. And on that note, we are about to load into the final map of this first series of the day, and that will actually be Molten Falls. Spart1e will be playing the Visor up against the RAISY on the Stroke. So we're seeing RAISY once again get a lot of that passive, instant mobility, the acceleration that you get from the crouch sliding as well as the peeker utility, whereas Spart1e is more into the information game. He's got that piercing sight, the ability to get perfect knowledge of where his opponent is at any given time when he pops that ability.
Well, this is in. If you're just joining us, it's the first series of the day. We're in map number 3 between Spart1e and RAISY. Currently 2-0 in favour of RAISY, but Spart1e's going to see if we can at least pinch a third and final map to at least get himself going, especially on the EU ranking leaderboard. But we'll see what happens as we're going to kick off with RAISY and see exactly what he's going to come up with and see if Spart1e plays a little bit more calculated than he has done previously on the other 2 maps.
Good opener from Spart1e. RAISY caught in a bad spot with the peeker, but luckily for him, that went about as well as it could have gone. That absolutely could have been a disastrous finish, but the LG is so strong. Spart1e, as you mentioned just before we got into the game, Spart1e perhaps a bit too overzealous, dropping onto RAISY down below like that. Probably didn't quite expect his opponent to be waiting in that position. Very aggressive push from RAISY, especially given that he lost out on the Mega. Good opening rail. Again, RAISY favoring his star weapon from the previous matchup. Spart1e, once again, the better opener, has got the better stack. But RAISY holding his own so nicely. Spart1e, can he finally clean up a frag? RAISY trying to run away. He's got the mobility, the speed, but can't beat the railgun in terms of raw velocity. As Spart1e tying things up 1-1.
RAISY, it's a shame from there, but as I say that, Spart1e commit suicide in the end, which is definitely something he did not want after such a good start. RAISY now is just going to try and feed himself information to see where he could be. But I like that though, he was waiting for the heavy as he was doing that, so it wasn't like he was wasting time in any way, shape or form. But RAISY now going to keep that top control. It's going to be on the lookout to see where Spart1e could be, but we'll find him shortly as both LGs come out. But we've seen how good RAISY's LG was in the past. But then again, Spart1e's was also pretty good there, so we'll have to see what he can do here. But that's not going to help as RAISY gets a beautiful rail to almost clean things up, but Spart1e's not in a good spot to contest. He's going to contest it anyway. Another 2 rockets from RAISY, and now extends his lead 2-0.
You obviously couldn't see, but I was shaking my head from the moment that Spart1e rounded that corner, like, don't do it, don't you go for this heavy. It's exactly what he ended up doing. This is a good play though, dropping down from above. Rockets just fall short. How did he choke that one? Oh, Spart1e, it breaks the heart to see RAISY somehow clutching it.
Literally, I couldn't believe it. That was just one moment to maybe get something back, at least make it 3-1. But those rockets to rail at the end, RAISY's just an absolute terror and madman, especially at that one point. There was no reason for Spart1e not to be able to take him down and get the first frag on the board. And instead, now RAISY extends his lead again, 5-0. And you can see now, gets the LG, but at what cost? You know, he's taking so much damage here. Takes the first rail. Second rail, RAISY barely misses, but doesn't matter at this point. He should just be able to take this. No, he doesn't actually. Spart1e is the one with the slightly lower stack. but cleans him up with the LG. But this is Spart1e's opportunity. Cannot let things get out of hand. It's early in the game. If it was in the 7-8 minute mark, yeah, sure, fair enough. Spart1e would have to take even more risks, but he doesn't need to take too many risks as he's done previously over the last few minutes. But RAISY now, with a huge stack, he will be on a chase shortly, which he has done. Gets a few rockets in, and nicely done there from RAISY. 6-1.
That unintentional rocket jump right there, the self-damage, sending himself flying back, that was the signal that RAISY was waiting for, knowing that his opponent was out of position and out of stack. And he, of course, with the Mega to his name, is going to take merciless advantage of that. And now he's got a very solid rotation. Around 15 seconds between the items. Gets himself Mega Spart1e. Why? Why? So aggressive. RAISY has got the better positioning. His aim has been on point with the LG. You know Mega is about to spawn. You can't be there. And now RAISY. Actually taking a lot of rails right there. I'm glad to see Spart1e use that weapon a bit more. It's one of those guns that he's more well known for. Now RAISY, can he get out? Can he get the frag? Peeker is going to be destroyed. And he's gonna get it, Lethal. He's gonna dodge the rail, pick up Mega, get the small armor to boot, and he's already back in position for the heavy. Such a solid play from RAISY right there. Spart1e definitely could have made more out of that.
Absolutely, 100%. He was on, what, 18 HP at the time when that moment occurred? And, you know, okay, Spart1e was on the greatest stacks either, but he's still good enough to maybe push in and take the risk, because it's risks he needs to take now. You know, he's taken risks before, charging for the LG when it wasn't necessary, and maybe fall back in, at least resettle and go back to your default health cycle. But even then, it seems weird that Spart1e, the one risk he probably should have taken, was probably the perfect opportunity right there and then. So you can see from Spart1e that there's certain areas in his play where he could be a bit more aggressive, a bit more passive. You know, he's got to probably choose where and when to take these counter-attacks, but maybe he wasn't really too sure, too certain with how healthy RAISY was, but he wasn't at all. He was only on 18 HP, but Spart1e now, some decent damage there, gets the second one. He's going to maybe try and go for the third, but decides to wait RAISY to go for the telly, which he doesn't. Backs up for now, and RAISY, another beautiful rail shot from him.
Yeah, definitely not the right read right there. Spart1e went through the teleporter expecting RAISY to just be standing behind him, and so he actually damaged himself with the rocket while RAISY was sitting comfy in the back. And then that railgun to finish things off. Spart1e outclassed, outgunned. LG looking solid, but he doesn't have the weaponry to follow it up as RAISY lands a nice little rail for yet another frag, and now things really are getting outside of Spart1e's control. Does manage to take away the Mega though, bit of a silver lining right there. Can he make it to heavy on time? Should he even make it? I don't think he should be here. Oh, takes a nasty rocket to the face as well. This isn't working out for him.
Doesn't even need to use the weapons in his arsenal anymore. He can literally just use the peek at this moment in time. That was a beautiful rail. Will he get a second? Yes, he does. RAISY is just making matters worse for Spart1e here. 14-2, and is he can even get another frag straight off the back of this? Yes, he will. And I think Spart1e has realised now that there's not really too much he can do. He's trying to contest everything, even not just the items, the weapons, just like he did in Blood Run. I think he feels like he's out of his depth here at this moment in time, and RAISY's just been remarkable from start to finish on every single map, especially with the LG, because we've seen him play really well with the LG anyway, but I feel like he's improved in it a lot more in comparison to previous stages.
We've seen more successful peeker action this game than we've seen over the course of several weeks. RAISY just stringing together the damage and the frags with the little robots. Usually it's more for information or to throw your opponent off, get them to burn a shot before you switch to something else. But this time around though, RAISY actually putting the blaster to good use. Is he going to hit 20 frags again? Lethal, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think we've ever seen a match in the Quake Pro League where every single map ended with over 20 frags for one of the players. It's rare to see, but RAISY might just get himself the hat trick and repeat that not once, not twice, but thrice in a row.
Yeah, do you know what? I was just thinking about it now. I think I may have seen 2, but that's even on... I can't remember what match it was, but I don't think I've ever seen 3. So this would be remarkable if he does, if he gets the 3-peat of 20 plus frags, which he has done. We're talking about will he, could he, might he, maybe, but yeah, he has done it. He has done. 30 seconds later, gets the additional frags, makes it 21-2. This is absolutely remarkable. We thought RAISY at first, in the first week he was playing well. This time round, he's just letting things shine. Every map has been his playground, all three throughout the whole entire course of the series, and just making matters worse for Spart1e. It looks like Spart1e's trying to help him get the 30 bomb if he can. That's not going to happen. It's way too little too late. But then again, you've got to remember, Spart1e is definitely fundamentally gifted in many ways. It's just a shame he couldn't adapt quick enough, and RAISY adapted so well, so quickly on what Spart1e was up to. We know how good Spart1e is. He is a great player, fantastic all-round on what he normally does. Just needs to try and adapt and download his opponent a little bit faster than what is required.
It does seem like adaptability plays a part in it. We mentioned it before we even got into the first map. But one of the things that we frequently see with Spart1e is that he gets a very strong start, and he did that this time too. First frags on map 1, first frag on map 2, frag 3, also got himself control and tied things up pretty early on. But then it falls apart. It slips in between the gaps, in between his fingers, and he just loses control. And then his opponent just steamrolls over him. And when you're up against someone as gifted, as strong as RAISY, you can't make any of those mistakes. So the ring out, and RAISY jumps right after him to seal the deal. GG's indeed, a clean 3-0 victory for Maestro RAISY.
Yep, the Maestro man himself. He must have had maybe around almost a 70 frag mark over the course of those 3 maps. But RAISY, absolute destruction and demolished Spart1e there. And don't get me wrong, Spart1e played well at the start of all 3 of those maps, but it just didn't happen in the end. RAISY pretty much had his number, and we felt like he was on the back foot throughout most of that game. But not only was it around the 70 frag mark, we have to, think about the maps which were chosen. Molten Falls, Blood Run, they are quite difficult maps to get high frags on.
Yeah, absolutely. And still RAISY, I think the first player ever in the history of the Quake Pro League to get 3 map wins in a row with more than 20 frags each time. So kudos to him for that. Congratulations. But on the other hand, we do have to admit that it could have been closer if Spart1e had just stuck to his guns, right? We know that during the last few minutes, he just went for it, throwing himself at RAISY time and time again in the hopes that something might just stick and he could get himself 1 frag, maybe 2, an item, and then just make something happen, at least close the gap a bit. It ultimately didn't work out that way, but if he had adopted a more passive playstyle, there's no way that RAISY would have gotten these high frag scores.
Yeah, there was a couple of things. I think switching to a passive playstyle would have helped, because it was a bit too aggressive on certain areas where, there's an instance where when you're on spawn, you can either take a 50-50 risk of going one way or the other, depending on where your opponent's going to at least challenge you on spawn. Well, maybe he should have took the harder route, so at least that way it'll be a little bit more unorthodox in terms of what he's going to do, but at least he can stabilize in some way and get a feel for his opponent on the information he can take from around the map. But it just wasn't to be in the end. He kept choosing either the wrong path or tried to contest certain areas which just didn't need to be contested, and it wasn't even in a position to even do it. And you can see there, 1800 damage difference as well, even though the scoreline pretty much says it all, which is absolutely remarkable stuff from RAISY.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's almost trying to turn into this Swedish virus. Stocks has the same problem. He feels like he can make the refrag happen after he does enough damage, but then his opponent with the better positioning and the better weapons just nullifies that push and gets so many frags off of that effort. So I think that Spart1e definitely has to start looking into avoiding that in the future, because these games could have been so much closer with some minor adjustments. And here we see the final performance. Look at those frags: 21, 24, 26 for RAISY, 46% LG, 52% Rail. That is blisteringly hot. Well played, RAISY, a very deserved win.
71 frags total over the course of 3 maps, and we were talking about the LG earlier, 48% overall over the course of 3 maps. That's remarkable stuff. Normally you see it in the 20s and 30s, depends on the circumstances. I know it does depend on positioning as well, like for example if you're both strafing into each other, or maybe someone's getting away and using the LG. Obviously the accuracy can be a little bit different in comparison, but to have 48% overall, and that showed that consistency, That is absolutely ridiculous. So well played from RAISY. He will be winning his second in a row, and we'll be going to the next series very shortly. We'll be having that in a few minutes, so make sure you stay tuned.